Hello and welcome to the Power BI November 2022 update. In this video, we'll explore what's new this month and see some demos of the highlights. But before we jump into all of our new features, we'd like to announce that we're changing our accent color from yellow to teal. This change was made to ensure that our product is more accessible for users with disabilities. The new color improves contrast and increases visibility of the user interface in Power BI, making the experience easier to use and more inclusive. That said, the Power BI brand color and icon logo will remain yellow, so no change there. Getting into our features, we have some exciting new items for you in the reporting section. First, you can now unshare and unsynchronize the axes of your small multiple charts. This new capability is especially useful when the ranges of your data are very different and you're more interested in comparing their trends across time than their absolute values. Ram will show us a demo of this feature.
Unshared and unsynchronized axes for small multiples. Yes, it's been a while since we last updated the feature. Yes, this is one of the top asks regarding small multiples, and we are happy to be bringing that to you this month. So, what is the feature? Well, as you can see from the small multiples chart in front of me, a lot of the data, when you divide it into small multiples, gets put across a wide variety of ranges for each small multiples chart. And when you're interested, let's say, in evaluating the trends of the data across time, across these different categories that you're splitting the small multiples by, the absolute values are not as important. And sometimes, because we care about helping you compare the absolute values of your data, like you can see, the actual trends of the data, the changes of your data over time for each individual small multiple become harder to evaluate. But if you're only actually interested in the trends, we have these two new features, unshared and unsynchronized small multiples y-axes, that will allow you to compare those trends over time instead. So let's take a look. You'll find that in the formatting pane, in the y-axis field well, and you can see these two new options, shared y-axis and scale to fit. The shared y-axis option will well, right now it's on by default, right? It will unshare these different y-axes once you click this off. So just watch the y-axes on the left here. And now they will be unshared. So you'll see them duplicated across every single one of your small multiples charts. And this allows us to turn on scale to fit. And what scale to fit does is it will change the minimum and maximum of each individual y-axis of each individual chart to the minimum and maximum of the data in that specific chart. So now, as you can see, even the one that, before this was basically a flat line, now we can actually evaluate the trend and we can see that, it's not actually flat, right? It's changing a lot over time. And we can evaluate this trend across all of our different small multiples and compare them against each other without thinking too hard about the absolute values of the data. Now, there are times, and a lot of the time, the absolute value of the data is very important. But, let's say that we're talking about stock prices, for example, where what matters is the change in percentage over time of each individual stock price. And whether it goes from 80 to 90 is very different from whether it goes from 900 to 1,000. But the absolute values of each individual stock price for each individual type of stock are less important than the percent change over time. So that's an example of an application for when it would be useful to unshare your y-axes, to scale them to fit for each individual small multiple, and allow you to compare trends across time instead of just absolute values. So this is something we know a lot of you have been asking for. It'll open up a lot of new applications for small multiples, and so we're really excited to be bringing that to you this month. Thank you.
We're also adding two key features to help you customize your Azure Maps visual to better suit your needs. First is the new Show Labels toggle in the Map Settings card of the formatting pane, which lets you decide if you want to show or hide labels on your map. If you toggle the label off, the map will not show any labels on the base map to give you a clean map. This removes distraction for situations where the labels aren't required to interpret the data shown. The second feature is the ability to customize category labels on your Azure Maps as well. Now you'll be able to toggle them on and off and customize their font and colors in the ways you can with other labels. Next, You can now create dynamic slicers using field parameters. This summer, we released a public preview of field parameters, which allows end users to dynamically change the measures and dimensions being analyzed in a report. While this feature allowed slicers to control what fields were used in other visuals, it didn't allow slicers to control other slicers. But now you can. Sujata will show us a demo of this powerful new capability.
This month, we're excited to announce that we'll now support dynamic slicer scenarios using the preview feature called field parameters. As a refresher, field parameters is a feature that allows your end users to dynamically change what measures or even what dimensions are being used in various visuals within the report. And in the initial release for field parameters, it didn't yet support the ability to dynamically change filters. And what I mean by that is that maybe instead of changing the measures or dimensions being used in your visuals, maybe you wanted to dynamically change what filters were being applied to the visual, meaning maybe you wanted to filter to different values of product when product was selected, or you want to filter to different values of category when category was selected. Well, now we're happy to announce that we've removed that limitation, and you'll now be able to specify whether a slicer is going to be showcasing, the fields of the parameter or the values of the selected fields. And to help illustrate that in more detail, let's see an example. So I'm going to take this slicer here, which is currently being used as a field picker, and I'm going to copy and paste it directly below it. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger since there will be a lot more values for this category. And all I need to do is simply click on this context menu on the right and say show values of selected field. So now when I do this, you'll see that this slicer is actually representing the values for this selected field, so category. And so what I can do here is I can change this slicer to pick a different field. So let's say if I pick model, and it will automatically update this slicer below it to show the values of model. So it's not just changing, these visuals here in terms of what dimension it's plotting, but it's also changing this slicer so that we can use this to dynamically filter the values for model, and we can also still filter, or we can also still change different dimensions from the field picker here. And so this will allow a really good combination of not just dynamic measures and dynamic dimensions, but also dynamic filtering scenarios. And so we really hope that this improvement, helps not only increase the amount of scenarios that you can enable for your end users, but also makes it easier for them to get to the right subsets of data that they're interested in. And as always, since this feature is still in preview, we appreciate any feedback that you have on this improvement or also the field parameters feature. We've also gone ahead and turned on this preview by default, and that should help save some time for users that have not already opted in. So thanks again for checking out the demo, and again, we'll appreciate any feedback that you have along the way.
This month, we're also making it possible for a single table to simultaneously filter more than one table in a remote source group. Previously, this wasn't possible. The single table could filter more than one table in a remote source group, but not at the same time. For example, a local date table could filter either the remote sales or the remote inventory table in the same source group, but not both at the same time. Now we've lifted that restriction. Next, we have several new updates for you in the modeling section. First, we're delighted to announce the public preview of the Optimized ribbon in Power BI Desktop. This is an entire ribbon devoted to streamlining the report authoring experience, especially in direct query mode. One of the most powerful new features we're including with this update is the Pause Visuals feature, which gives you control over when visuals send out DAX queries. Now you can make your edits undisturbed and update your visuals when you're ready. Zoe will show us a demo of the new Optimized ribbon and its capabilities.
We are delighted to announce the public preview of the Optimized ribbon in Power BI Desktop. This is an entire ribbon devoted to making your experience authoring reports streamlined, especially in direct query mode. Have you ever wanted to stop visuals from loading data while you're still making changes? Then Pause Visuals is for you. Here I've clicked the Pause Visuals in the ribbon, and now I can go ahead and update these visuals. And instead of sending out queries, it will push the visual into a pending state. And when I'm ready, I can go ahead and click refresh, or I can resume visual queries. In the optimized presets, I can quickly choose and apply predefined combinations of settings tailored to any reporting need. So for direct query, I want to go with full query reduction, and I can do so with one click. If I want to further customize which elements are in query reduction and which ones are more interactive, I can also do so with the customize option. And again, I can also revert back to full interactivity with one click. And finally, we've also brought the Performance Analyzer into the Optimize ribbon, so you can quickly go ahead and analyze all those visuals and make further optimizations as needed. Please let us know what you think of the new Optimize ribbon. Thank you.
Next, we're introducing a new DAX function called Evaluate and Log. This option will help you debug your DAX by taking any DAX expression, evaluating it, and logging the result, acting very much like a print statement. Jay will show us a demo of this function.
If you've ever written DAX statements that are more complicated than basic expressions, you probably have felt the need to output intermediate values. Without it, it's very hard to make sure your DAX calculation does what you expect. So this month, we're introducing Evaluate and Log that will make your life easier. Evaluate and Log allows you to write an intermediate result to the log so you can see what values your expression is using to return its result. Let's look at the demo. So here I have a measure that calculates the average number of customers per month. It consists of an if statement and an average X statement. Now, I know arguably this is not the most complicated DAX in the world by a long shot, but it's also not a very basic expression. So it would be great if I could see the results of the distinct customer measure that is provided as the input to average X. So what I can do using Evaluate and Log is I can wrap this into a call to Evaluate and Log and give it an optional label. So I'll give it distinct customer per month as the label so I can easily find it in the log, and then I'll just commit this. Now, when I use this in a visual, nothing seems to have changed because I'll just get the results. So I'll just drop this in here and I'll immediately see the results. Great. However, what has happened is that the intermediate result of distinct customers has now been written to the log, which I can look at using a tool like SQL Profiler or a tool called DAX Debug Output created by our very own Jeffrey Wang. So I'm going to use that tool here, and I'm already connected to it. So I see the log here and I see that the DAX evaluation log event has been written, and I can see the intermediate results from the distinct customer expression, and I can see the results, the numbers for each month number of year right here. So this is the intermediate result that was provided as an input into average X. So it allows me to see the results, the DAX expression, the raw output as well. As you can see, the evaluate and log function is a very simple way to do basic debugging of your DAX expression, which hopefully will help you to be more successful with DAX and get to the right results faster.
We're also adding two more DAX functions similar to evaluate and log called TOCSV and TOJSON. These convert the input table to CSV or JSON respectively. With the TOCSV function, you can change the delimiter and whether or not you want the headers to be included, as well as the max number of rows that the function can return. Next, we have some updated connectors for you in the data connectivity and preparation section. Updated connectors this month include the Azure Databricks and Databricks connector, the Dremio Cloud connector, the Kognitwin connector, the Spigit Projectplace, Planview Enterprise 1 PRM, and Planview Enterprise 1 CTM connectors, and the Subtotal connector. We're also happy to announce a variety of new features for you this month in the service section. First, we've introduced a new streamlined experience for uploading files to the Power BI service. In the workspace you want to add files to, you'll see an upload option next to the new button. You'll be able to use this dropdown to connect to files stored in OneDrive for Business or any SharePoint site you have access to, or upload them from your computer using the Browse option. Uploading a local file will create a copy of that file in that workspace. Using the OneDrive or SharePoint option will create a connection to that file, meaning changes to the file will change in the workspace as well. When uploading an Excel file through this experience, your workbook shows up in Power BI the same way it would in Excel Online. If you want to actually import the data from the Excel file into a Power BI dataset, you can continue to use the older Get Data Flow or use Power BI Desktop. In early December, we'll also introduce a new way to create datasets from CSV and Excel files. The OneDrive for Business and SharePoint options will be grayed out if you don't have a subscription for these products. We also don't have an option to upload files from personal OneDrive accounts. For now, you can continue to use the older Get Data Flow to access files in your personal account. However, in early December, we do plan on removing the older Get Data experience along with the option to upload files from personal OneDrive accounts. At that point, you'll still be able to upload local files if you don't have access to a business OneDrive account. Next, you can now create subscriptions to a view of a Power BI report uniquely relevant to you. When creating a new subscription, just select the Include My Changes option to subscribe to the view of the report as you currently see it, including any changes you've applied. Michael will show us a demo of this feature.
Subscriptions are a great way to stay on top of your reports right from your inbox. We're now excited to announce you can subscribe to a specific view of a report uniquely relevant to you. This means that the unique set of filters and slicers and cross-highlighting, as well as any applied bookmarks, spotlighted visuals, personalized visuals, or drill up or drill down views you've applied to a Power BI report will all be captured in your subscription. So let's have a look at how this works. Here I have a customer profitability sample report that includes revenue numbers for our whole team. Now, for the sake of this demo, I will take on the part of Tina. I'll go ahead and select my name to see the revenue numbers relevant to me. Now, I'm particularly interested in the northern region, so I will also go select North, which you'll see cross-highlights the report for only the northern states. With the report now in a state I am particularly interested in, I'll go ahead and click Subscribe. Add a new subscription, call it Tina's View, and you'll now see there's this new option here called Include My Changes. By selecting this, your subscription will capture any filters, slicers, or other changes you've made to the report. Deselecting this will subscribe to the report in its default state as created by the report author. Now, that's not what we want for this demo, so I'll go ahead and leave it checked. I'll click Save and Close, go back in here, and I'll click Run Now. Now in my inbox, you can see I've received a new email subscription called Tina's View. If we open up the PNG here, we can now see that the slicer has been selected for Tina, and we're only seeing Tina's revenue numbers. Further, the report has been cross-highlighted to only show the data for the northern states. Now if we click the Go to Report link, the view of the report that is opened in Power BI is automatically filtered to correspond with that view in our email subscription. As you can see, Tina's selected, only Tina's revenue numbers, as well as the northern region. Thank you.
We're also excited to announce the release of linked metrics. With this feature, you can now show the same metric on multiple scorecards across multiple workspaces. All check-ins, edits, and updates will be reflected in all the metric locations, making it easier to avoid creating duplicate metrics tracking the same thing. Ansi will take us through a demo of this feature.
With the release of linked metrics, you now have the ability to show the same metric on multiple scorecards across multiple workspaces. All check-ins, edits, and updates will be reflected in all the metrics locations, making it easier to not create duplicate metrics that are tracking the same thing. For example, here we have a scorecard on workforce planning, and I have a metric here called Grow Europe Workforce, and I want this metric to show up on a different scorecard for my team that is focused on the Europe workforce, so I can add submetrics and other related metrics to it. So instead of recreating the same metric, I can just link this metric to my new scorecard. So to link a metric, I go into the edit mode and click on new and select link to existing metric. Here you can see the list of scorecards that you have access to. And here I'll pick the scorecard workforce planning that we just looked at that contains that metric I wanted to link. Now in this case, I want to link this metric called Grow Europe Workforce, but I also have the option of linking multiple metrics in one go by checking these boxes. Once I hit continue, the linked metric appears on this scorecard. So then I can go ahead and add other submetrics under this metric that are relevant for the Europe workforce, like so. And when I click on this metric, it opens up this pane where I can see that it appears on other scorecards, which is the workforce planning. And clicking on this takes you to that scorecard. And this information is also available in the connections pane. Now, the great thing about linked metrics is that I can check in any scorecard that this metric is on, and it syncs automatically everywhere. For example, if I wanted to add a check-in for this linked metric, I can just do that here and make it maybe behind and hit save. Now, if I go and navigate to my workforce planning scorecard here and go and select Grow Europe Workforce, you can see that it also reflected in this scorecard. Edits are only possible in the source scorecard, so you'll see that the edit button is disabled here. So if I want to edit this linked metric, I need to go and navigate to the source metric by selecting that option in the overflow menu. So any edits that are made here in the source metric will be reflected in all scorecards that contain this metric. As you can see, this new feature makes it so easy to link a metric to any number of scorecards without having to create duplicates and manually make edits and check-ins. Please try out this feature and let us know your feedback.
We're also updating information protection this month. Power BI enables you to import files from OneDrive or SharePoint Online into the Power BI service and ensure your work in Power BI Desktop stays in sync with the Power BI service. Starting today, you can import files from OneDrive or SharePoint Online that have a sensitivity label. Note that refresh from OneDrive or SharePoint Online is not supported for protected files. Protected files are files that have a sensitivity label that has protection settings. Next, we've added some new capabilities to formatted tables with paginated reports, starting with accessible navigation. The ribbon toolbar contains a series of controls organized into groups. The ribbon tabs, which change contextually, help you find options when you need them. These tab commands are presented horizontally from left to right. You can press Ctrl F6 to navigate to this section, and then use Tab to move between the top and bottom bars, and arrow keys to move between elements. We've also added grand totals for table format, which allow you to format a selected table with or without grand totals. This feature is especially useful to show totals on explicit measures in formatted tables or for summary reports of data. Lastly, we've added move and resize functionality, allowing you to resize the width of columns using a drag handle or reposition a selected table on the canvas. Right-clicking the mouse button will also allow you to cut, copy, paste, and remove objects on the canvas. The great thing about these options is that when you save, export, or print your report, the formatting is preserved in your newly created report. Next, we have a variety of new and updated visuals for you in the visualization section. New visuals for you this month are the track plan timeline and roadmaps visual, the Supermetrics charts visual, the CP radar chart, the Sankey diagram for Power BI by Chart Expo, and the Gantt chart by Lingaro. Updated this month are the ACO planning visual by Acrobat, the AdWise roadmap Gantt version 2.5 visual by AdWise, the chart control XMR by Nova Silva, the Zebra BI Cards Visual version 1.3 by Zebra BI, and the Zoom Charts Drill Down Graph Pro visual by Zoom Charts. You can find and download all of these visuals and more on AppSource. Lastly, we have an update for you regarding our Power BI desktop infrastructure switch to WebView 2. As we get closer to general availability, we want to make sure we've solved as many issues as possible. So starting with this release, desktop will check if you have WebView 2 installed. If you don't, we'll install it for you. And if that installation fails, you'll see a warning every time you launch desktop until WebView 2 is installed. This is one of the last steps we're taking before making WebView 2 mandatory for using Power BI Desktop. So please install WebView 2 and enable it now if you haven't done so already. If you're seeing issues with WebView 2, please reach out to us using the community forum or using the email address shown to you in WebView 2 errors. And that's all for this month. As always, we hope you enjoy the updates, and please keep sending us feedback on what you'd like to see in upcoming releases. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.